and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 198, and today's date is October 25th, 2013. And the title of this episode is Soon DHS Will Be Raiding Everyone's Home. And what we saw today was that DHS and the local authorities worked together, and they had a tip that this man had illegal weapons in his home, so they got a search warrant, and they went into the house. They were looking for illegal weapons, but they took the woman's personal papers, stories that she was working on, and again, just so everyone knows this, she is a reporter, and they took all her information and her sources and her anonymous sources, and they took all that information out of the house. And the question is, if they were in there looking for weapons, why did they need that information, and why would they go and take that information? The only reason we can think of is because they are trying to cover up something and to see how much she knows. And we are going to see this happen as time goes on, because what happens is the government gets desperate, worried, and paranoid, and what they're doing right now is creating these lists. This is why they're spying on everyone and creating these social profiles of everyone, of who you know, what you're doing, where you are, and they are creating these lists, and soon we will see this happen more and more, just like we saw this happen actually in Nazi Germany. It started out slow, they were going through the right channels, and then it picked up, and they would just raid people's houses. This is what is happening right now. We have to remember we are at the end game now. The Fed is printing or creating money like crazy. They actually want to do more. It's not enough right now, and eventually a lot of the financial institutions are actually saying now that they will be printing or creating, well, whatever you want to call it, creating more money as time goes on. And I've been saying this for quite a bit in my reports, that there will be some type of mini collapse which will give them and allow them the ability to create and print more money, because they need some type of reason why they need to create this money, and they will get that reason because they will create the situation to help this along. But let's get into the economic collapse news. And yesterday I reported that there were signs that the economy is collapsing right now, and what we're seeing right now in Spain is that their housing market is not doing as well as they said. During their bailout, they created this bad bank called Sareb, and what it did was they combined a lot of toxic real estate, and it was to absorb about 50 billion euros of real estate assets. They put it in there, and they created different securities from it, and they are now receiving offers to purchase this, and they received 30 offers, and they are much lower than what they expected to receive, and this just goes to show that their real estate market is not as strong as they are saying. Okay, now Fitch is coming out and saying, and yesterday I reported on this, that Italy, Portugal, Greece, Spain, they're all having problems, and Fitch is out there today saying that they're forecasting that Italy's public debt is going to peak at 133% of gross domestic product, and they're not seeing that Italy is going anywhere. Their economy is stagnant, and it is not looking good for Italy. Now, here in America, October's consumer sentiment is the lowest since the end of last year, and we know why. We know that the Fed and the government are manipulating the entire market, because they are the market. They're manipulating the stock market, they're manipulating the unemployment, they're manipulating the GDP, and we understand this and we can see it. If we go back prior to 1994, we understand the unemployment is around 24%, and even higher for the young adults. Now, if we translate that into what is really happening, we're seeing many corporations lay off people. We're seeing Bank of America, we're seeing Wells Fargo, we're seeing Citigroup, We are seeing many automobile manufacturers laying off people. One of the recent layoffs is Volvo, and they're slashing 2,000 jobs. Why? Because their sales dropped by 5%. Now, if the economy is actually getting better and they're telling us that the unemployment is coming down, why are all these companies showing a sales drop? Back in February, there was an article in the USA Today that retail stores were going to close. Barnes & Noble closing hundreds of stores. Radio Shack closing hundreds of stores. Best Buy closing hundreds of stores. Now here we are, we fast forward, going from February to now, unemployment has dropped to 7.2%. Wouldn't you think, since more people now are working, that more sales would be on increasing, not decreasing? But we're having reports from Macy's, Walmart, Target, and all these main stores saying this holiday season is going to be a lot worse than last year. But if we really think about this, last year the unemployment was much higher. So how can the sales be lower this year? Unless this is completely fake. Because last year, what was the unemployment? 8, 8.5, 8.2, and now it's 7.2? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And what else do we see? Well, again, if unemployment is coming down and it's at 7.2%, and they're saying it's improving, slowly but surely, Electrolux wouldn't be laying off 2,000 people. LexisNexis, Legal and Professional, wouldn't be laying off 205. Long Island College Hospital, 500 layoffs. Boston Scientific, 1,500. These are all the layoffs. Now, Bank of America, I mentioned this yesterday, that they were laying off 1,300 people. Well, guess what? By the end of this year, it's going to increase to 2,700. Now, they are trying to tell us that unemployment is coming down, real estate is booming, and it's making a comeback, but Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup, 1-800 East West Mortgage Company, and there was another one I forgot, are all laying off thousands of people. What does this tell us? It tells us this is not real. What they're telling us, they are making this up with their own manipulated numbers to make everyone believe that things are okay. They did this prior to the crash of 2008. Prior to that, Ben Bernanke came out and said the subprime was contained, that he doesn't believe there'll be a decline in housing. During the year of the recession, when it hit in October, he said the Fed does not forecast a recession at this time. So we can see what is happening. We also see mortgage applications declining. We also see the Fed continually buying up the toxic real estate. Now we have the financial institutions coming out saying that the Fed will probably end up increasing QE. Now, if they're going to increase QE, how could the housing market and the economy be doing much, much better? Actually, the only reason they're increasing it is because it's doing much, much worse. So let's take this one step further. Right now, the number of U.S. homeless students are at a record level. American public schools enrolled over 1 million homeless students during the 2011-2012 school year. This is the highest number on record. They are trying to let us know that everything is okay, but we're noticing, let's just back up for a second. We're noticing that the enrollment in schools which are homeless students are reaching record levels. We see the people who are receiving food stamps reaching record levels. this makes no sense if we are looking at the data from the Fed and from the government. It completely is the opposite of what they're showing us. Okay. Now, what we're seeing in China right now is that they are increasing their gold reserves. And it's predicted that their gold reserves right now are at least 2.5 times higher than they are actually reporting. And the reason why they're hoarding all this gold and buying more, because they understand they want this gold to back up the reserve currency of the world. Now, yesterday I mentioned that Saudi Arabia was looking and very upset at the United States because of the Syrian conflict, but they're using that as a cover. We understand that Saudi Arabia understands that the dollar is going to collapse, and what they're doing right now is they're making deals with China because they understand they're selling most of their oil to China right now, and they can see that they are going to become the next reserve currency, and Saudi Arabia doesn't want to be, left out in the cold when the dollar collapses. And this reminds me of the movie Rollover. I don't know how many people have seen this, and this was back, I think, in the 80s or so, when Saudi Arabia pulled out all their money from all the investments, and the economy just collapsed in the matter of minutes. And this seems like this is where we're headed, because they're already saying that they are looking elsewhere and turning to other sources right now. And Turkey is now joining Saudi Arabia with the displeasure of the U.S. policy over Syria. And again, we know they're using this as a cover story because right now Turkey is part of the NATO nations, and we can see them making deals with China to purchase their missile systems. And the U.S. has already said to them that we're very concerned about this, and Turkey realizes if NATO and the U.S. and all these nations collapse, what are they going to do? So they need to align themselves with the next power that's coming up, and it just so happens that is China. And we're going to see a lot of Middle East countries start to do this, and we're seeing a lot of countries already making deals. We're seeing Kenya, we're seeing Uganda, we're seeing Australia, we're seeing England, which is allowing Chinese banks in there. We're seeing the Eurozone now doing a currency swap, which is bypassing the dollar. We're seeing China with Russia, China with Iran, China with North Korea, and China with Brazil. And we can see that this whole entire thing is starting to take its toll on the U.S. dollar. The dollar is now declining, and the central bankers know that eventually this whole entire thing is going to implode. They didn't get into Syria, they didn't get into Iran that they wanted to keep the dollar propped up, and now they are on plan B trying to figure out what event they need to do to get this war started, because this is the only thing that will cover up what is coming, and they do not want to be blamed for this collapse, because they do believe that when this collapse is over and the war is over, that they will reset the system and start this whole thing over again. And this is why they're trying to capture all the natural resources all around the world. But, I don't think they will be able to do this at this time because the U.S. military is exhausted. We're spread too thin around the world. And once the military learns what they're really fighting for and it comes out, I don't know if they're going to really agree with what's going on. And you can see that the veterans, you can see that other military forces are starting to speak out against what is happening here in the U.S. And this is why the government wanted a civilian armed force, federally controlled, to be separate and apart from the military, which is DHS, FEMA, and TSA, because they understand they will need to maintain control here when this whole thing falls apart. Now, talking about things that are falling apart, Obamacare. Now, in people are getting their insurance canceled. Insurers are canceling coverage for hundreds of thousands of Americans because of Obamacare. They are forcing them to buy new policies because their policies are not Obamacare compliant. And what's happening is their insurance is being canceled, and they can't get new insurance because the website and the phone numbers and everything that they try to do does not work. And when the people see the prices, they are shocked at what they're looking at. Right now, 40% of Care First customers in Virginia, Maryland, D.C. are losing their insurance to Obamacare. And here is one person's account of what has happened. This person used to pay $753 per month with a $5,450 family deductible. Since the plan got canceled, he had to go onto the affordable in quotes, Care Act plan. He looked for the same exact benefits, and he found that the same exact benefits is going to cost him now $1,360 per month. But the only difference is not just the price, but is the deductible is now $11,000, which means he has to spend $11,000 first before insurance kicks in, compared to his other plan, where he had to spend only $5,400 before his plan kicked in. So right now he'll be paying $1,360 a month and will not get the benefit of any type of insurance at all. So we can see what Obama did when he created Obamacare. He said, okay, I'm going to give every American insurance. Everyone will be covered. And he went to the insurance companies and they said, listen, I want to cover every single person. How can we do this? And the insurance company said, this is easy. What we're going to do is double the premiums, double the deductibles, and we can cover everyone. He goes, but there's one thing we need to make sure, though. We need to know that everyone is in. Because if we're increasing everything, we need all Americans in on this. This is the only way it's going to work, because this way we'll be able to recoup the money from those people that we normally wouldn't insure. So this is what's happening. They doubled the premiums and they doubled the deductibles to keep people and make them purchase the insurance like the health insurance companies wanted. Obama came up with a penalty. If you do not take it, you'll have to pay anyhow, and you will be penalized. This is how they created this monstrosity. It is not health insurance for everyone. It is not good for everyone. All they did was increase the premium and the deductibles for every single person in the U.S. to cover those people who would normally not be covered or would have to pay on their own a higher premium. And this is what they did. And they're using the penalties to make sure that they get the majority of the people in on this system. And for those people who aren't on this system, the government is ready to receive taxes of around $200 billion or so, which will increase revenue for the government, because right now they're so far into debt, they need more tax revenue. So this is a win-win situation for the government and for the insurers, and not for the people of the United States. Now, since the people are being dropped from their health insurance because Obamacare doesn't work and the premiums are too high and people can't afford it, Senator Ron Johnson is saying, you know something, we need to amend Obamacare, and we need something that says if you like your plan, you can keep it, because the president did say this in the beginning. Listen, if you like this plan, you can just keep your plan, but we're finding out that was false also. We're finding out that it's not affordable. So pretty much he lied like he lies about everything else. Okay. Now, we're seeing that local law enforcement and Facebook are joining up to keep anything that is deemed criminal off the internet. And it could even stop people from organizing protests. And what they're saying, they've been working with security chief at Facebook to block certain users from the site if it is determined they have posted what is deemed criminal content. And of course, they don't define what criminal content is. And forgive me on this, but I thought we had a First Amendment, and the First Amendment said Congress shall not make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And what they're trying to do right now is stop these Facebook pages from calling on protests and marching on D.C. like the truckers did. They're trying to stop all these people from doing this. And what they're going to do is you're going to see a lot of Facebook pages being taken down. And they really don't have the right to do this. They are just doing it because they're trying to maintain control. And this is actually during the end game where government tramples on all people's rights, and they continually do this and try to control every single person. So what do we have in the end? They try to tax you, they scare you with home invasions, and they try to control what is being said all around the media. And the last avenue of control is the internet, and that will be coming, and they're already starting with Facebook. Now, we understand that the SWAT teams, DHS, local law enforcement, raided this woman's home earlier this year to confiscate the notes she used to report on government cover-up. And now she fears that her sources have been compromised because they went into her home, they took what they needed under the pretense that they were looking for illegal weapons. And Audrey Hudson told the Daily Caller that files were taken during a SWAT raid of her Shadyside, Maryland home this past August, conducted as a part of an investigation into her husband, Paul Flanagan. Authorities were following up on a lead that Flanagan unlawfully possessed a number of firearms. And they went in, they pilfered his wife's personal documents during an armed raid of the couple's home. And she's saying that they confiscated notes that included and exposed how the Federal Air Marshal Service had lied to Congress about the number of airline flights there were actually protecting against another terrorist attack. And we can see what is going on here, that they are looking for whistleblowers, they are looking for sources, they're trying to clamp down on these people, and this is a sign that we are at the end game. And we understand that World War III is going to evolve out of this because the central bankers have no choice at this point. And we can see France right now is in a large-scale military operation in Mali. Their economy is failing, as we know, just the same as the whole entire Eurozone. And what is happening, they are in Mali because Mali, I think, is the third largest gold producer in the world. And that is why they're in Mali. And they are trying to get and control the gold there because they understand that their economy is failing, the paper is failing, and they need gold. Now, Israel is out there again saying that that they will, in the next several months, decide if they will attack Iran over this nuclear weapon. And what they're saying is that Iran is just a month away from building a nuclear bomb. And They've been saying this for over 25 years, that Iran is around 3 to 5 months. Now they're saying they are 1 month away. And what the Israeli official is saying is that he thinks that in late 2013 or early 24, and especially if America sees that Iran is not serious about reaching an acceptable agreement and only continues to buy time, the U.S. will accept an Israeli attack because a nuclear Iran is absolutely against American vital national security interests. So what we're seeing here is they're setting something up that will allow Israel to attack, or an event will occur in the U.S. which will allow the U.S. to attack Iran, because their whole entire plan is to get into Syria and Iran, and we all know this. Now, they are developing a new type of drone system. We understand now the drones now fly around, take pictures, and they could be armed. Well, they're taking this a step further. Instead of having drones armed and shooting on people, they are now making kamikaze drones that blow itself up and takes out the target. So this way, the drone, the person who's flying the drone can direct the plane to exactly where they want it, and it is carrying explosives, and it will explode right there. And this goes on to say, while this drone could be used to target enemy vehicles and locations beyond military application, Textron has hopes for homeland security applications as well. So what does that tell you? That tells you they're looking to use this right here in the U.S., and hopefully Department of Homeland Security will use these type of drones. Now, Japan is holding a huge military exercise. Destroyers, fighter jets, 34,000 troops are taking part in a huge exercise aimed at bolstering Japan's ability to protect its remote islands amid a territorial spat with China. And we're seeing a lot of these drills. The U.S. had it with Japan. They're having another one on a small island out in the Pacific where no one really lives, a lot of volcanic eruptions there, and they're using live fire out that way. And this drill that Japan is having will also use live fire, and they will be posting videos to help sway the world into their cause about that these islands are theirs. And we can see what they're doing. They are training, they are getting ready for what is to come, and that is World War III. Now, New Orleans is reporting that they are ripe for a power grid outage, and they go on to say that the government report on a northeastern blackout back in 2003 cited that no utility had undertaken any major transmission project in over a decade. And what they're saying is the entire system is so old that one little thing can take out the power grid. And it goes on to say that many sections of the grid in the U.S. are just like scrawny little extension cords. They are analogous to a single line transmitting huge amounts of power from city to city, and they're constantly monitored to prevent overload. However, many of these lines are 80 years old, and if they have a surge of power, it could blow out all of these lines and melt them. And it goes on that the fact that our national and local grid system is on shaky ground is reason enough for concern. But if we continue this with a potential large-scale natural disaster, like Janet Napolitano said, that it's not if or when a natural disaster or when a cyber attack event occurs, people could be left out with power for days, weeks, or even months while this is rebuilt. So, we can see where this is going. We understand, and I think National Geographic is having starting on the 27th, a mini-series on a power outage. And if you'd like to watch that, I think it's National Geographic that is holding that show, showing what would happen if the power goes out. And I'm going to watch it. I think that'll be very interesting. Now, we're seeing the entire economy decline. Things are not looking good. And here are some facts to show you why things are a lot worse than there used to be and why we're heading towards this collapse. Total consumer credit has risen by a whopping 22% over the last 3 years. Student loans are up by an astounding 61% over the past 3 years. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, median household income in the United States has fallen for 5 years in a row. And we have to think about this again. If income is falling and people are getting more jobs and the unemployment is coming down, how could this be? Unless these jobs are part-time and people are making a lot less money. Right now, the middle class is taking home a smaller share of the overall income pie than has ever been recorded before. Ordinary Americans are being priced out of the housing market. Today, nearly half of all home purchases are all cash, and I've discussed this many, many times. The home ownership rate in the United States is now at the lowest level it has been in 18 years. So when Obama was out campaigning that the housing market is rebounding, how could this possibly be? Every single day, thousands of Americans are receiving letters in the mail informing them that their old health insurance policies have been canceled. And we can see why that is happening. Only 47% of all adults in America have full-time jobs at this point, and 1 out of every 10 jobs is now filled by a temp agency. We can definitely see that this economy cannot be sustained. Right now, the government has suspended the debt ceiling, which means they have a credit card with no limit until February. So they are spending like crazy. And what happens to every single economy? At the end, they print, they print, they print, they spend, they print, and they continually do this. And we are definitely going to see some type of mini collapse happen probably this winter or maybe early January, where this whole entire thing will collapse, which will enable the Fed to increase quantitative easing. Because what will happen, and I've said this before, countries around the world will see that the U.S. is losing the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. They will be seeing that other countries are making deals and selling their resources, bypassing the U.S. dollar. They will see that the debt is so high it cannot be sustained. They will see that the unemployment rate in the U.S. is so high that they do not have the tax revenue to keep up with all the payments that they need to do. And they will see that the housing market is tumbling down. They will see that the Fed has absolutely no reason and needs to increase the amount of purchases of treasury bonds because of the foreign nations that are selling it. They will have to increase the printing of money to purchase the toxic real estate from the banks because of the housing market that is declining. And the government will then, because more and more people will become unemployed, the government will then have to borrow even more money to make ends meet, and this will just escalate. And then what will happen is Saudi Arabia and other Middle East countries will say, holy, we see what's going on here. Let's dump our treasury bonds and our investments and make a deal and go along with China right now. And that will be the linchpin. That will make the entire economy just completely collapse, and we will be in a full-time collapse at that point. And we can just see how this is going to play out. And what the central bankers will do, hopefully, not hopefully, but because they want to cover this up, they will try to get some type of war started. And you can see why they're doing this. They need to get something started so it's not blamed on them, because every single American will turn back to the government and the Federal Reserve because they think the Federal Reserve is actually part of the government, and they will blame them. So they will need to shift this blame off of them and put put this on another country. And you can see how these events will occur, because what they do is they create these events for a distraction. So all eyes are off them and on another country. And this is how they're going to get out of this. This is what they're going to try to do. And we will see this absolutely happen come the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Because what they tried to do, they tried to have this happen in Syria. That fell apart. Now they will try again. And like I said before, the next event will not be a one-off bomb like in Boston, in the Boston Marathon. This will be a multiple event. It will happen around the country, and we will see many things happen at this time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.